Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and today we are going to have one of the pros that's been with me many, many years, working with me and back and forth. Al Diamond, I'm talking about from the Agency Consulting Group. Everybody in the country probably knows Al's name. If they won't, they will when I get done, if we can help it, Al. But Al is going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart and is so essential for all of us to understand, and that is the commodities versus the relationships. And I won't say any more about it because Al's the guy that's going to tell you about it. Let me tell you a little bit about Al. He's the president of Agency Consulting Group, and that's over in South New Jersey. Been doing that for, what, 1985. Whoa, that's a long time. And he's been in the insurance business for a long, long time. He's the pipeline. His newsletter is one of the top newsletters in the country. People of all shapes and sizes use it. And then Al well. We'll go forward on this, but I can tell you this, that he's certainly one of the top consultants and has been for many, many years for the insurance industry. So Al, what are we going to talk about today, as if I didn't know?
Well, thank you very much, George. What we're going to talk about today is whether our insurance agencies have a need for personal service and relationships. We all mouth the words personal service and relationships, but do we actually do them? And at this point in time, over 50% of the insurance buying public is shopping for insurance online. But most of them buy from a human being. And that's a really interesting thing. They want to talk to an agent. I'm not sure they understand why they want to do that, but they want to touch and feel and speak to a financial counselor. It just comforts them. And the reason, I believe, is that insurance is an intangible product. They don't want to buy it over the phone. They don't want to buy it by mail unless they are sure that it's just like cans of peas in the grocery store and it's all the same. And if they believe that, they will buy online, and there's a lot of young people who do that. However, most people want to have a relationship and a personal service by some human being.
Well, you know, I
So
think,
the need for...
excuse me, I was just going to say, so many of us over the years have gotten to the place where we're talking to somebody in India, and that just drives you out of this. Can't stand. I mean, I think that's why people have stepped back too, don't you? I mean, you get. It's so frustrating to get into that position. At least
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. And we spend a lot of time in insurance agencies trying to get that level of personal service up before the sale. Unfortunately, the attitudes about insurance and about their agents often change within a year after the clients purchase a product. It's an interesting concept because that change, the customer attitude, doesn't change on its own. It changes because our relationship with them changes after the sale. We have a lot of great slogans about customer service, but after the sale happens, there seems to be a disconnect, and we don't really give the grade of service that we tell them we're going to give. We don't get to know them. We treat them like numbers, and they may know the agent who sold them insurance, but they're unlikely to establish a relationship with anyone else in the agency. The reason for that is there's too much to do. Too little time to do it, too many clients to visit. We hear things like, we all have so much to do, we're lucky if we see their clients at all. Or our agency operations takes up so much of our time that we're hardly in the insurance business anymore. We're managers, administrators, and I hear the word firefighters a lot. We promise ongoing communications and relationships with our clients, but really, when you have hundreds of commercial clients or thousands of personal clients, can you see them all? And can you see them all as much as you told them you would before you sold them the policies?
So true.
And that seems to be the core of the problem. And the reason for that is that our personal relationships and commitment to those personal relationships should be the point of differentiation between our agency and the competitors to our agencies, but they often are not. Your best clients, every agency tells me that their best clients, their largest, their best, their longest lasting, are those that they're friends with, who they've had a long and strong relationship with. That point of differentiation between you and your competitors is that strong personal relationship that you or your staff, and don't forget about them, can make with your customers. If that's true, and if we all agree with that, why don't we keep up those relationships? And the answer truly is a lack of commitment. Now, commitment is a different word. Let me go back to this. This is really important. Commitment is the way you operate your life. Those things that you're committed to, things like marriage and your children, your church, some sport, people are committed to sports or hobby, and a lot of us are committed to our business. Those things to which we're committed to gets our attention, and those things get done. Those other things that you aspire to but aren't committed to are things that you try to do. And I go back to my youth and the words of the immortal Yoda in the Star Wars movies. He said, "Do or do not. There is no such thing as try." George, I know you and I both know people who are really committed, using that word committed, to things like golf. They may play golf 3 or 4 times a week. They maximize their success at that level, whether they're good golfers, mediocre, or bad, but they're maximizing their success because they're committed to the game and they play it a lot. Well, I know a lot of agents who have hundreds of commercial customers and thousands of personal customers that are still so committed to the concept of personal relationships that every client thinks that the agent and the agency considers them VIP and treats them accordingly. Everyone listening to this, can we really say that every one of our clients thinks that they're a VIP? If you commit to personal relationships, you understand that there are others in the industry who can outspend you. There are always better prices than yours if the client looks hard enough. But as long as the client knows that you give them a great grade of service that they can't achieve elsewhere, they'll not only remain your clients, but they'll tout you to their friends. They'll recommend you as their go-to insurance expert. And that's the real difference. And what we found is that there are 3 major things that you need in order to have personal relationships as your point of differentiation to which you're committed in your agency. And those 3 things, the lack of those things, are symptoms of the ailment that keeps you from maintaining those strong relationships. And I just want to briefly go over those 3 things because I'm sure your listeners will already know what they are. The first one is a lack of prioritization. And the symptom of that is each one of us saying to ourselves, we just have way too much to do. I'll give you an example here. Agency Consulting Group is a relatively small consultancy, but we're very busy. We only have 5 or 6 people here. But we have to remind each other of lunch times, and we have to remind each other to go home at the end of the day. Otherwise, we'll miss lunch, and we'll still be here at 6 o'clock working. There are things that we remind ourselves of, we remember because they're our priorities. Our health, our alertness is a priority. So each one of us reminds the others, hey, it's time to take a break or go to lunch, do something out of the office. Our families are priorities. So no matter how much work we have on the desk, we force ourselves to become husbands, wives, and parents and grandparents in the evenings and on weekends, because that's more important, frankly, than our businesses. So when you say that you have too much to do, basically you're not prioritizing properly. And the thing I have up on the screen is a very common graph of how you should prioritize your work efforts and your personal efforts as well. There are things that are urgent and important that should get top priority. Those are your red files, your absolute needs. There are secondary things that are important but not urgent. These two, the important and the urgent, should always be done before things that are squeaky wheels, the urgent but not important, or those final things, the detail work of the day, things that are neither urgent nor important. Set your priorities and work those priorities, and I suggest to you that the red and the yellow, the urgent and the important but not urgent, all of your customers fall in those two categories.
For sure.
For those agents who have become converted to personal relationships, seeing and talking to their clients becomes a primary function of their working lives. Many of us have been shocked by long-term clients who we visit maybe once a year at renewal, and they tell us they found less expensive insurance elsewhere. Well, we're hurt, and we feel that we think of them first, but we fail to keep them in the loop. We don't communicate with them. We don't see them, even though we may be working on them. And the worst case scenario is when you do spend a lot of time on behalf of the customer, well, we never bother to include the customer in the communications, so they assume that you're not working on them unless you're talking to them. Mm-hmm. The next thing is the lack of delegation or having the lack of the right managers. Very small agencies, 1 or 2 man or 3 man shops, everybody does everything. But once you have more than 3 or 4 employees, you've got to start breeding your own managers. They're supervisors, they're lead workers, they're people that you can hand off things to who will do it, who will do those mundane procedural things, the administration of the agency, so that you can be with your important clients. And if you have 10 or more employees, and if you're still the only manager, I assure you that you're doing your clients a disservice, because you have to be spending a lot of time on administering your agency instead of being out with them. These are the agents we meet every week who feel trapped in their office. They would like to get out to their clients, but they can't. They've never bred their own managers. So the next opportunity here is to select managers, supervisors, and bring them into the mix. We take on much work. We don't increase our management and supervisory opportunities accordingly. So the next thing is, we hear this a lot. We have too many clients to communicate with regularly, and that is a symptom of a lack of process management. And process management is something I think you're addressing, George, in something that's coming up very exciting, that's coming up soon. But you've got to classify every client that you have, personal or commercial, by the number of times that a client should be communicated with each year. There is no standard. Not every client needs to be spoken to 5 or 10 times a year, but a few do. And every client should be spoken to at least once or twice a year, and that's not always necessarily by you as the agency owner or by the agent who has sold him the insurance. It can be by anyone in your agency, a licensed agent who's qualified and who should be a point of a relationship between the client and you. Define who should be seeing and speaking to the customer based on revenue size or based on personal relationships. And by the way, in agencies we work with, the best source of that is the client himself. He'll tell you exactly what he needs from you, and you adhere to that or more to make sure that you're meeting and exceeding all their expectations. Start tracking in management and managing the communications lines every week and every month. So those are, in a nutshell, for a brief Monday morning meeting, the 3 things that you really need to do to establish personal relationships as the primary function of the point of differentiation between you as an independent agent and all the bank agencies and all the direct writers and all the folks who use a phone call in India or a customer service away from the area. You're there close and personal. And if you can prioritize your work, delegate appropriately, and manage the process so that every client knows how important they are to you, you're going to be successful into many more generations in the future.
I don't
That's
think
in a nutshell.
I think it's a very well done short presentation. You are so right. You know, I talk to so many agencies, so many agents and have over these 50-plus years. And they say, well, don't worry, we've got relationships with all of our customers. That's very interesting. And you said it in this here. You said you got thousands of customers. How many people do you know? Well, I know 50 of them pretty well. No, that's not good enough. You really can't do it. So I think, Al, that you have laid the groundwork here to understand, so that people can really understand the necessity for ongoing communications. And I thought your point there about tracking the communications, knowing that you've done it, how many touches have you made on these people? Did you touch them? And incidentally, Al, I'm a real advocate of something called post-purchase cognitive dissonance, buyer's remorse. And I think the first touch after you got to know them is certainly say, hey, thank you, we're glad you're with us, this is who we are, and so forth and so forth, and remind the people that you've made a good decision on a continuing basis. So all these things are very, very important, but I think that this, in a nutshell, is the answer, the long-term answer for any agency, particularly personal lines agencies that have the need to contact these people and are in a situation where they're fighting the Geicos of the world on the commodity deal. So, Al,
and for all of the listeners, George, if I may interrupt,
please
stay tuned. George has something very, very exciting coming up very soon that we're going to participate in as a consulting firm, but that every agent in the country should be aware of. And George, I'll let you publicize that when the time comes about, but it will be relatively soon.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and this is the first mention we've ever made of it, and you can start thinking about it, everyone. It's called INA, Insurance Needs Analysis, and you're going to hear a lot about it, but part of it is communicating on a continuing basis with every one of your customers and measuring it, and know that you've been in touch with them. And well, I won't go any further right now. Al, here, this is the contact business. They subscribe to the pipeline. Anybody not subscribing to the pipeline is missing something. That is probably the most quoted newsletter every month. It's online, and it's terrific. So for goodness sakes, get that. And don't forget now that you can go back to the email today, and you can find the archive there on Rough Notes or Agencies Online. And of all of these, now Al had another one of these some months ago, and you can go hear Al even some more. So Al, again, on behalf of all of our troops, I want to thank you again, and I hope that we can work together and bring relationship management to the entire industry. How's that?
Always my pleasure, George. Thank you.